Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Sumrok Studios. I am your host, Carl Dean, and if you do not know by now, the purpose of these videos is to sit down with a lot of the key service providers in the industry of multifamily investing, specifically those working with the Sumrok students, and really just get to know them and their business a little bit better. There's a lot of education that you guys get through Brad's mentoring and his coaching, but we wanted to do just a bit of a deeper dive with each individual person that comes to the table and supplies a service, whether it be lending or title or insurance. And today we actually have Jeff King from Ramey King Insurance. Jeff, thank you so much for coming into the office here today.
Glad to be here.
We appreciate having you. I know you've been around for years and years and years, not only in the Sumrok business, but in this business of insurance. Why don't you tell the people just kind of how did you get started in insurance? Like what had you? Did you come out of college? Is it family? How did that happen?
I did it the old-fashioned way. My dad was in it, so I joined him.
Okay.
But I got out, went to Texas A&M, graduated, then spent a year with a insurance company through a training program in Houston, which is great.
Oh, nice.
Then came back, and it's family business. He had
From
a partner.
Texas. You sound like you're a guy from Texas.
Oh,
so
yeah. Born and raised, and fifth generation, I think.
Oh, wow.
That's awesome. But joined him. Then my brother joined 2 years later. We're twins. He was a CPA, and he got that designation, then came aboard in insurance. And
I didn't know you guys were twins, by the way. That's pretty cool.
It creates a perpetual confusion, which is part of the deal.
Are you Jeff, or are you the other one?
That happens about 3 times a week, to be honest.
That's wild. I didn't know that. That's awesome to know. Awesome. My 2 best friends are identical twins.
Are they really?
So I have a thing for twins, apparently.
Well, we're not identical, but we do resemble.
Okay, wow, that's interesting. Okay, all right.
But at the time I joined the agency, we are a general agency. We handle all types of insurance. But probably 10 years later, we decided to focus. We're located in Denton, and Denton's a college town, 2 or 3 colleges there. And so we've always had plenty of apartments. In real estate, we insure just a big part of our business. And in the, 96, just picked it as a specialty.
Okay.
We had a lot of customers already, had markets developed for that, had an expertise developing around it. We're also investors in real estate, so felt like I always think I know more than the average agent about their side of the desk than typical agents who are not in the business.
Gotcha.
But that was, and that's gone very well for us.
Yeah.
And, it's the thing that's fun for me, since I'm in that business and I know what real estate can do for people's financials, and have seen it. Like I said, I've been in this business 36 years, and have seen people start from a couple of rent properties, or rent house, or rent. They build out a schedule of rental homes, go into commercial, starting in multifamily, and have seen people just absolutely build fortunes doing it.
Fortunes, like legitimate.
Legitimate, generation skipping.
It's crazy, yeah.
Generational.
So many people I've met in the Sumrok group, they came in with corporate jobs, and they didn't even, they skipped right over the single family stuff, and they decided to use their IRA funds to start investing in multifamily. Right. Next thing you know, they're millionaires. They're at every event. They're sitting on 4,000 doors. It's just crazy to me. I love those stories. So
real estate, there's lots of different types of investments, but real estate, due to taxes, use of leverage, it's a magical type of investment.
It really is.
And so I enjoy seeing people do it. It's it takes a lot of time before someone will take the plunge, and we see a lot of that just working with people. But once they do, and get a feel for it, and get guidance to do it, it'll probably be the best thing they've ever done.
Yeah, it's definitely life-changing, that's for sure. So I wanted to have you in the office today for multiple reasons. Number one, I just like you as a person. After sitting down with you, we had some conversation. You're definitely a Texas good old boy, which I think, I love to put a spotlight on guys like you, because it's few and far between you meet a really good, wholesome person that you just want to work with. You know what I mean? So that's number one. That's the main reason. Number two is, I know you've been sponsoring and being at these Brad Sumrok events since the beginning of his evolution, right? Coming out.
It was when Brad started having this. I asked him, can I attend? He did not have it set up initially with vendors or sponsors, and So I asked him if I could come take it in. I knew real estate, and I was able to see a lot of my customers there, and he was nice enough to let me do that. And then when he added to it by adding people, we joined in as soon as we can. And
That's awesome.
And have enjoyed that. It has been entertaining and amazing to see what he's done with it.
Yeah, it's crazy how it's grown, that's for sure.
It's a good group for us to be in. As a real estate specialist, they are real estate specialists. Obviously, Brad's people, but his clients and the participants, if they're not in it already, they want to be.
Yeah.
Once again, that's one of my favorite things to see people do that at any level, be it one property or 10 properties.
They really come out educated. I mean, they get I think, my personal opinion, just meeting some of them, they really have a good core understanding of the business. They
do.
They come out very educated. They ask the right questions, and they're executing, and they're getting deals done. So I mean, obviously, that's attractive being in the business that you're in.
That's true. That's true.
So you decided to focus on multifamily because you were investors, and so now who's at the company now? Is it you and your brother? Or?
We actually have two different businesses. My brother runs a separate business called Agents Alliance, which is a network of agents across several states. I'm running Ramey Insurance, which is the retail insurance agency. We have about 20 people in the agency. We have a 7-person group that specializes in real estate. We also handle, of course, home and auto, and then benefits, health insurance.
So you guys have kind of opened the door to home and auto as well.
We always have. It's always been
so
part
you kept
of
it open, but you just started focusing more on that.
It was just my direction.
Gotcha. So you get 20 people, and your office is located in Denton?
We're in Denton.
Okay, excellent. I love Denton. That's a good market. Yeah. So you've been in the business for a long time. You've been sponsoring. I assume you work with several of the Sumrok students over the years?
I do. I don't know how many, quite a few of them. And have, I work with them I work with them when they get started, or they're already on their path, and I get a chance to go aboard with them and their agent.
Nice.
And
it's been good.
It's fun. It's good. It's fun, but it's fun to see them do that.
Yeah. Talk about it. So I for me, the importance of my relationship with anybody I do business with, whether it's the guy taking out the trash or it doesn't matter. Like, I have to like the person. There has to be a relationship there. I enjoy having those relationships in those contexts. Talk about the importance of having that relationship with your insurance provider.
I think it's very important. There's an old adage I saw on some insurance advertising that you need to consult your insurance agent like you would a doctor or a lawyer. Now, I don't necessarily put myself exactly to that level, but it is a very technical business. And most people don't want to know everything about their insurance. It may not be the most exciting area. It is for us, but they do need to know something about it. And they need to have some knowledge of the insurance, and they need to have an agent they can talk to and spend time with to educate themselves.
Yeah.
And I think that's very important. When they need help, they need to be able to reach out and know the agent, be it me or whatever agent they're dealing with, that they can reach out maybe 24/7. And I've worked a couple of holidays where events have occurred. I turned in a claim on Christmas Day several years ago, and it wasn't on my schedule to do that, but they had a fire in the fireplace, and it took the house. So,
wow.
So we spent some time with them. But
interesting. So obviously, the relationship for me is important because, again, we're in the business of education on the Sumrok side. And, as these people are getting into their first, second deal, number one, you're dealing with a lot of people who may be new to this business.
That is true.
So they need the education, right?
Yes,
so that's definitely your wheelhouse when it comes to, you've been in the business for a long time, you've been in the business of multifamily investing for some time, and so you're able to educate these people and really help them make the right decisions for their property, right? Because it's not always about saving every penny and getting the lowest interest rate or the lowest insurance rate. It's that you really got to protect your asset.
You really do. Actually, it's very technical. There are ways you can cut corners in insurance, and there's valuations you can use. There's coverages you can add or not have. And while the premium's always important, and no one ever thinks they're paying too little in insurance, but what matters is when they have the claim.
Yeah.
Then, to be honest, the premium doesn't matter at all then. But they want to make sure they have the right coverage. We deal with a large part. We deal with them. Of course, we're interrelated with other service providers. We deal with their mortgage company, their title agent, their attorney, if need be, to walk through various coverages. And many times I'll have someone send me a list that they've gotten from their mortgage company. And they say, well, I'm not sure what they're asking about, but can you make my insurance look like that? And what are they talking about?
Yeah.
And why do they want all these coverages?
Interesting.
And you get a chance to go over it and explain what it is. And most people, that makes sense. Now, the second or third time around, they know the drill. They know the coverages. But the first time out, it's they need to know what they're doing.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree at all. So, I know a lot of people, when they start to scale and grow their business, they tend to, switch into maybe a master policy that the property manager has. Now, I'm not bashing any which way or the other. I know for me, there's a very important piece with having that relationship and being able to call my insurance adjuster, but not only that, or my insurance agent, but not only that, it's really just maintaining control. I never want the property manager to always act on my behalf, especially when it comes to things that are insurance matters. The reason I say that, you guys, is when I was younger, I was a fire, flood, and mold technician. Certified, did a lot of emergency service calls and things like that. And, there's a lot of things that happen that are like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. But then being in that business, I learned that those little things can sometimes turn into big deals. A little bit of moisture is not a big deal, but 6 months later, if it was never, taken out of the wall or handled appropriately, it can become mold. It can become these serious issues, and that obviously leaves you at liability. So I never really feel comfortable with, not to put anybody down or anything like that, but I never really feel comfortable with an hourly employee that's on site who really doesn't understand the asset itself and the liability behind it and who's on the hook for that.
That's right.
I never want that person making that decision for me. So I tend to want to keep those relationships, keep my even if it does save me a couple dollars going into a master policy. I kind of look at it a little bit differently, and I want to make sure that I have the person I'm working with, I have a relationship, and you have my best interest in mind.
We do with master policies. We hear that terminology, and there's different ways to look at it, or really what that means. One of which we see initially people think of using a master policy provided by their property manager, and we provide these coverages as well. And the value initially is grouping of several properties together and getting hopefully a better price just in a volume discount. And we do those as well. But a negative to it potentially, as you're saying, is that at that point you're using the property manager's agent. And you may not ever even talk to them.
And they may not want to make a claim because it may affect their other properties,
that's correct.
Right?
You're out of control of it. But I said we provide those coverages as well. Even if you take that direction, even if we're providing that policy, you need to know the agent, have a direct line to the agent. And you may have to clear it with the property manager, but most property managers will let you do that so that you have that chance to dialogue with that agent to know the coverages you're getting.
That's good. Yeah.
Other coverages, we also provide another master policy as effectively someone that owns several properties on their own master policy. And that's some people, I've run into different people. Some people want to control every aspect of their insurance, and I support that. Others would like someone else to do it for them. And that may be where the property manager comes in. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but they need to know what they're buying.
Yeah.
And they need to know what that property manager has bought for them.
Yeah.
But another thing we do run into, another term for master policies, we deal with several risk purchasing groups that amalgamate many properties together. And in the North Texas area and across Texas, that's primarily how insurance is provided. And so most of the time, probably 95% of the time we're writing an apartment, we're already putting it on a master policy. Okay. And many times we'll run into someone that has a master policy, but it's in one of these master programs already. So we already have a grouping of coverages together.
Interesting.
But it's but back to it, whoever is buying the insurance, the end user needs to have some knowledge of what
I agree.
that is.
I mean, I feel like a lot of people, when they're getting into the business, they want to get a deal done. That's their main objective. And they say, hey, let the property manager deal with it because they know best and they've been doing this and they do it for everyone else. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's like you need to at least educate yourself. You need to at least understand the coverage you have. Look, I'm the first to tell you, I hate reading contracts. I hate reading the fine print. It is 100% not my thing. I do not enjoy it. I avoid it at all costs. That's what I have lawyers for. My fiance helps me do that sometimes, I'll be honest with you, because it's just not my thing. But you should at least have someone, on your team go through that, highlight the items that are important, so they can at least summarize it for you so you understand your coverage.
A good agent will have they may not have read your policy. Most policies are fairly standardized, but the agent should understand and have been exposed to everything in that policy. And so if there's a question you need to dig into, they should be able to answer you. Why is that there? Why is that not covered? Why is this excluded? Or why is this even added? And what's the condition of that? A good agent will have a feel for that.
Interesting,
yeah. And can get those answers for you.
Very interesting. If this isn't apartment related, but, just as a lesson that I've learned dealing with insurance, I had homeowners insurance and my home was burglarized a couple years ago. And I had a box of watches that was gone, along with many other things, but that was probably the most valuable thing. And I'd never been told and never realized that I needed to have additional separate coverage. I just assume if it's in my house and I have receipts, it's covered. But, I was maxed out, and I actually lost a significant amount of money.
It can happen.
In a lot of different ways, because I just didn't have the right policy. I didn't update it. I didn't notify my agent. And I'll be honest with you, the reason is my best man, actually, my wedding, he owns an agency up in Michigan, and he would always keep me in the loop on these things. He would say, hey, I noticed you just bought that, make sure you take care of this and make sure you adjust that. I didn't have that anymore. I didn't have a personal relationship with the person. It was just, give me insurance, and I wasn't prepared in a time where it mattered, and that stung.
there are, in most policies, and I've always heard this, if there's an exclusion, and jewelry is one, typically, it's either excluded because it's uninsurable. There's something, an intangible that can't be insured, or it's better covered elsewhere. But you're right to get the time to spend with that and explain those limits, because everybody has some limit at that. That's why people have to have a feel for it.
Interesting. So obviously you insure properties, multifamily properties. Do you provide also the insurance if a particular property makes the renters get renter's insurance? Is that something that you offer as well?
We do. We have two options of it, one of which we write renter's policies, just where the individual buys a renter's policy. They can also combine that with their auto policy and get a discount as well.
Okay, that's good.
We do also have a master renter's policy that's relatively new.
Oh, interesting.
It is generally bought by the property owner or the property manager.
And then they bill back.
They try to bill back it, and it's not that expensive, and it's I see it as more of a way to try to address the deductibles that the property would have. If you had, for example, a kitchen fire, a renter's policy would typically cover that from a liability standpoint. But I've always heard that 75 to 90% of renters don't have renter's coverage. And I know a lot of landlords oversee that, so that number's probably less now.
Yeah, because I make them.
They need it, but many are without at certain times. So when that occurs, the tenant may not have a way to address that, so it's going to hit the property's insurance.
Interesting.
And so a kitchen fire, say a one unit, maybe a $50,000, even $100,000 claim, hits that policy. The owner of the property it's not necessarily they didn't cause it, but there's not the mechanism to get paid for it, so they turn it in on their insurance. They have that hit to their insurance, the claim, which can affect them. But the renter's policy or this master renter policy is designed to move that back to the tenant.
Okay, so here's a good question, and I don't know a lot about insurance, I'm being honest with you, but what I do know a lot about is asset management and providing more value, from your asset, increasing your NOI. That's kind of my MO, right?
Very good.
As soon as you said the master renter's policy, I thought to myself, is it legal and is it okay, I guess, if you were to say, hey, I got this master renter's policy and it is, let's call it $14 a month per person, is it okay for me to say, hey, we have this in place, but we charge $20, or could I put something on top of that?
As far as I know, it is.
Oh, wow.
I know it is legal to
that's a
back
huge
charge
value
it.
add there. That's
But I've wondered, just because there's a handling to the property owner to do that.
yeah.
And I'd have to double check,
Okay.
but I believe it is.
Okay, I was just
But-
curious.
but at
I mean, there's
least it
cable
charges
contracts and all
that.
these other things that
That's right.
you know that's definitely a value add option.
right.
I'm just looking at this like, okay, that's
And-
$500 a month times 12. Wow, that could be
A
significant.
master renter's policy, it can add up. It usually runs $10 or so a unit per month, which is not inexpensive when you've got a 200-unit
No,
complex.
not at all.
But if you
$10 a
can,
month is pretty cheap. I mean, I
Yep.
know I pay anywhere from 15 to 25
Oh, yeah.
depending on where I'm living.
but if they can back charge that somehow in a fee to the tenant,
Interesting.
so they're not handling that entire cost or any of the cost for that matter.
That's $1,000. That's $12,000 a year. I mean, $12,000 a year.
That's right.
That's a significant little bump
Yes,
there.
it is.
That's
Yes,
interesting.
it
I
is.
wasn't aware of that, so that's something I'm definitely going to look into. Interesting. Okay, so let's talk about like when do people typically contact you? They contact you obviously when they go into an LOI situation,
Yep.
right? When they're getting serious. But do they ever contact you sooner than that? Is there anything you can do for
They
them? sooner than
can. We offer indications when, typically when someone's looking at the offering from the realtor, and at the time they're reading and they see the pro forma put together by the realtor, but they're wanting to do their own pro forma. And I like to start at that point. They can call us. We'll gather some information about the property. It can work up what I refer to as a working indication.
Okay.
It's based on what we actually rate it internally. We look at the property. Many times we'll be familiar with the property, or we may even insure the property. In that case, we can get them a firm quote. But we'll be familiar with the property, the size, square footage, number of units, and actually we'll rate out a working indication for what we see in the marketplace. That way they can plug it into their pro forma. Just, of course, the long laundry list of things they're having to do to get an idea of what it's going to, that the operation does. But I like to look at it that standpoint. And I've had people I've done dozens of these for.
Okay.
Because they're, the typical buyer is looking at several properties at any one time, trying to find the right property that works for them. But certainly once a property goes into an accepted LOI or they think it's going to be accepted LOI, everything's lining up, or certainly in contract, we need to take it and start working to get a firm quote.
Okay, so for sure when they're going LOI, they need to be
Absolutely.
contacting you. But you do offer services to give them as close of a roundabout as you can beforehand.
I do one or two of those a day.
Okay. Oh wow.
So we're glad to do them. And I think hopefully it has some value to the buyer. Many times they're buying in areas they're not familiar with, or they're not in Texas, buying in Texas, and don't have a point of reference, but we do. And give them an idea.
Good.
We can also check flood zones as well.
That's huge.
It's
yeah.
becoming more involved as we go in.
It
flood
absolutely
markets.
is. I mean, it definitely moves the needle on that number for sure. I've seen some deals completely fall apart because it's just you don't factor in that flood insurance and knowing you have to have it. And Fannie Freddie makes you get it and throws off those numbers quite a bit.
That's right. We have also seen after Hurricane Harvey almost 2 years ago has changed the dynamic on flood insurance.
I can imagine.
It's not just the flood zones they need to worry about it anymore.
Yep.
And does everybody need it? No, but you need to check.
At least check, right?
That's
You
right.
at least got to check because if you don't have it and something happens, that's the worst case scenario.
Little water's a mess. A lot of water is a heck of a mess.
It can shut you down. I mean, it can really honestly shut an entire complex down. It's crazy.
Very true.
Okay, so let's talk about claims. So, obviously people call you for all kinds of different claims. When is it okay and you recommend making a claim versus when is it sometimes like, maybe, let's say you got a $10,000 deductible or something like that. When is there a yay, nay on that?
In property claims, what I suggest, unless you know it's a particularly bad claim, it's big. But if you have a small claim,
Big being, let's call it $75,000.
it's 75, or a building has burned down, or the damage is multi-unit.
That's a definite easy.
It's easy to call, but where we see it a lot are hailstorms, which is our big claim in this part of Texas, that the customer knows they had hail, and they will ask, well, can you send someone out to see if we had hail damage? Our suggestion is for them to contact their contractor.
Yep.
We can make some recommendations. We can give several, or they'll have someone they've worked with. Have that contractor come out, review the damage, somewhat estimate the damage. First, is it below a deductible? Is it, or is it even damaged? Hail is one of those. Just because they had hail across town or even 1 mile away does not mean that you've had the right size hail to do damage, although it does happen many times. But have a trusted contractor look at your damage, estimate your damage, and then if it's above a deductible, call us and we'll turn it in.
Gotcha.
We actually don't want to turn it in just to see if it may be above a deductible. Insurance companies, they look at claims, they look at sizes of claims, but if it doesn't need to be turned in at all, or we're not sure, let's not turn it in.
Okay.
I had a gentleman call me over the weekend. Same situation, had some neighborhood kids caused a fire at an apartment.
Oh, wow.
And it burned part of a building, a small building. And of course, the fire department worked the rest of the building over putting out the fire. And but he called, what's my deductible? I got it to him. He called me a day later, some stand down that's not that big, but he thought it was. And he had a $10,000 deductible, which is not a large number, but it wasn't even worth that.
Yeah.
But that's the way to look at it before.
It might have costed him, $20,000 out of pocket to fix that, remediate that, but at the same time, it's like it goes as a ding against you, right?
That's correct. That's correct.
That's the slippery slope where you really got to kind of decide what your equity stack looks like, what you have available, and does it really make sense, and what are the long-term, effects of making this claim now, and how is that going to hurt me going forward as far as
and say you have a $10,000 deductible and you have $11,000 claim. Does it make sense to turn it in? Everybody has their threshold where it gets above what they want to handle internally. But I can say the more you try to handle internally, just as a cost of doing business, and hopefully you don't have too many during a year, it will work for you in the long run.
Yeah, I think so.
I have one of my larger customers has many different properties, and we only see the large claims. Although as many as he has, I know he has activity that happens, but he just handles it as a cost of doing business. And he doesn't enjoy doing that any more than anybody else, but he budgets for it.
Yeah.
He just takes care of it.
Yeah,
so.
that's good. That's a smart investor, I'm sure.
And it works for him.
He's been through the run of the mill, right?
Yes, he has. Yes, he has.
Let's talk about any lessons that you've kind of learned throughout your years and years and years of doing this pertaining to multifamily investments. Any hard lessons, anything that stand out to you as far as hey, beware?
Let me think. Surely there are. The cheapest quote may not be the best quote, although sometimes it is. But it bears looking at. Why is it cheaper?
Yeah, why is it cheaper? Is a big question.
May just be a good deal, but it may be leave out some coverages. Property, business interruption, loss of rents, business interruption, liability limits.
That's a good point you just brought up there, like the loss of rents. Because I've been on properties where we didn't have that coverage, and it's come about, and it hurts, when you don't have rents coming in and they're not paying for that. And then I've been in properties where, we have 8 down units for several months, and, it is what it is. Those things are still cash flowing and they're getting remodeled, and guess what? Now we've got upgraded units, right? So that's a coverage,
It's like disability for the business. Initially, and they pay it slightly different, but many people ask, do I need loss of rents? And I have a facetious answer. The answer is only if you're depending on the rents for something.
Yeah.
Of course, then obviously we're all depending on the rents for something. But it's a valuable coverage. I have seen they handle it more as a business interruption claim versus straight loss of rents.
Okay.
So they're looking to see what was lost by the property by not having the rents, or were they able to move people from a damaged unit to a vacant unit, which effectively, unless the unit was fixing to be occupied, there effectively is no loss of rents. But it gets a little more twisted as they evaluate loss of rents. But it is a valuable coverage, and everybody's depending on the rents for something.
Especially if you have a small property and you have, like, let's call it 5 buildings with 10 units each, and you have that's 20% of your asset, sitting there not being occupied. That's not good news.
It's not. It's not.
So how do the Sumrok students and anybody out there watching, how do they contact your guys' firm? Because number one, I know for sure you guys are going to be at the July R2R, which is the July Rat Race to Retirement event.
Looking forward to it.
Here in Dallas. Then you're also at, I believe, AIM-NatCon with that's the Robert Kiyosaki event we're having. He's headlining that one, along with the real estate guys, Brad obviously, and several other big names. That is August 10th. You'll be at that one. So make sure you guys stop at his booth and talk to him and his team. I know, Jeff, you've just been such a strong supporter of the Sumrok brand. We want to make sure we're returning that favor as much as we can and sending people by your booth, because we think you do good business. So,
well, where to contact us? We're in Denton. Our phone number, we have an 800 number, 800-453-9691.
Okay.
Or our website, rameyking.com, www.rameyking.com.
Okay. If somebody has a question, like just a quick question, is do you have an info ad or a team ad or something like that?
It's info@rameyking.com.
Okay.
And I'm Jeff King at rameyking.com.
Okay. Yep. And then the info ad is, and it's RAMEYKING, just in case anybody didn't know how to spell King or Ramey. That's how you do it.
We have also on our website, there's different sections. We have a real estate section. There's also, if anybody wants to send us, there's a self-filling application on there that they can use, or just
so it's like submitting a deal if they're like,
it is.
Okay.
Or just call us and we can get started.
Is that on like a resources tab on the site, or?
It is. I think it's actually under the real estate section.
Okay.
There's an application related there.
Good.
And fill out as much as you want. We'll fill in the rest.
Okay.
It helps us. Primarily, we're there to help them buy. And we have, I've worked with clients from they're buying their first rent house to they're buying their 10th multifamily. They have multiple investments, retail, their business, which may be helping them fund being in the real estate business. While our focus is, my focus is real estate, the agency itself does all lines of insurance.
Okay.
So there's nothing insurance that we can't get taken care of.
Life insurance, you guys?
Life insurance.
Life insurance, business insurance, home, auto, you name it.
That's
but
it.
Definitely multifamily investments, that's for sure. You guys are the people to call. So, Jeff, I want to thank you so much for coming in. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Hey, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. This is just such good information from some of the best people in this industry. I know Jeff and his team have been, around, obviously, to be honest, longer than I've been born. And they know their way around Texas. They know their way around insurance, and they're people's people, right? They're the people that are going to communicate with you. They're going to educate you, and they're really going to stand by their word and their product. So I highly recommend their company, as does Brad and several of our students here at the Sumrok organization. We hope you enjoyed the episode, and we look forward to seeing you guys in the next one.